Now, how one of the key events that actually does happen about a month before Jutland, which actually ties down quite a few Royal Navy forces, was there was a raid on the south of England by the German surface ships. It was a small cruiser and destroyer force, not significant damage or anything, but the Admiralty got really worried that. One moment, let me just find. Okay, this is like one of the biggest problems. So if you see here, they managed to attack some civilian targets in this area near Dover and all near the mouth of the Thames. And this actually sent the Admiralty in a bit of a panic because they actually committed a few dreadnoughts and cruisers, including the namesake of the entire generation, HMS Dreadnought, to guard against the coast. So this was actually quite a bit of a big raid. Now, Shear's plan was to get the battle cruisers of the High Seas Fleet and ambush the British battleship cruiser division only. Okay, without taking significant losses. And he also wanted to first, lure them out into battle. And the intention was in the planned axis of advance. He was to gain, have some submarines positioned around here so that they can launch torpedoes and with luck, hit a few of the capital ships. Even if you just take down a few cruisers and destroyers, it's still something. Now, what the plan that Shear did concoct was Hipper's battlecruiser division would come over here and shell Sunderland, uh, Newcastle. It's a small is town next to Newcastle, and they have a pretty big football derby there. But the idea was they will come, they'll raid, and the British Grand Fleet will get the reports that German battle cruisers have shelled the coast, and then they will move to engage, and then that's where he would spring his ambush. That was pretty much the essence of the plan, and ideally they would be smacked by submarines on their way to engage the high seas, the Grand Fleet. Now, Craig, as you mentioned, the British had been decrypting the German traffic. There was room 40. I guess you could call it World War One's equivalent of Bletchley Park. And because of this, the British were able to actually concentrate their forces way better than the Germans because they were able to understand the traffic and then reroute the ships accordingly. Now, the operation was planned for, I think, if I'm not mistaken, for the 23rd of May. But here is where the Germans suffered. I would call a pretty significant setback for Shear's original battle plan was the battleships of the Koenig class, which is one of their newest dreadnought class battleships, all needed some repair. So he delayed the start of the operation. We're not going to sail out. And the repairs took a few more days longer than anticipated. And there was then very bad weather in the area towards the end of the month of May that delayed the departure. So the German fleet will not be leaving until the 31st of May. Why is this a problem? Because all the spare submarines that were not being utilized for the unrestricted submarine warfare and were to be employed in the ambush, well, they departed on 17th of May, but had fuel till 31st of May. And because of the imposed radio silence, they were not told about the delays to the plan. Really great planning, Shia. And then so this was the situation, and so he just modified the plan, and instead of having this encounter kind of, you could say, like middle of the ground, because with his original plan was the submarines are going to take out some casualties, so it'll be easier. He does want to get the planned engagement area to be closer towards the German land, so that at least if things do go south, he has a shorter line of retreat. And as the map Simon did have, I don't know if I have it here. God damn it. Sorry, I'm so sorry. But this entire minefield is there, and he knows that the British are not going to pursue him there. So the High Seas Fleet does depart on the 31st. But the problem is, um, the British have already decrypted this, and Admiral Jellicoe, John Jellicoe, who is in Scapa Flow over here, has been notified by the Admiralty or given the reports, and he's preparing to react. Craig, do you have anything you would like to say about Jellicoe?
Yeah, do you have a picture? Do you want me to toss up a picture?
I do have it.
Okay.
Or maybe you could put this more colorful image of
Yeah, I was gonna
Jellicoe.
say that is really colorful.
Hmm?
So, at the time, the admiral of the fleet, John Wadsworth Jellicoe, sorry, Jellicoe, the first Earl of Jellicoe, was a distinguished British naval officer whose career, by this point, it spanned several pivotal years in the Royal Navy. He had been born December the 5th of 1859, and he had joined the Navy in 1872, quickly rising through the ranks due to his aptitude. Apparently, he was just born for the Navy, as many people would say, and he showed a lot of qualities for leadership. He served in various capacities, including aboard the HMS Nelson, and then later the HMS Dreadnought, which is pretty interesting to say the least. It's a very symbolic ship, especially for this battle and for this time. And he acquired a lot of technical expertise in naval warfare, which is very important for the turn of the century, and particularly during World War One. By the outbreak of World
He
War
was
One,
actually,
oh, yeah,
I would just add, by 1904, he was kind of like a protege of Jackie Fisher.
yeah, and he's of course going to be in command of the Grand Fleet, the primary fleet unit based out of Scapa Flow in the Scotland. His strategic mindset and emphasis on gunnery and tactical training would prove to be pivotal in the large-scale engagements that would come, such as this one. And I don't want to give too much up about, when you hear about his name, everybody would talk about what happens in the Battle of Jutland, but we're not going to spoil that. But he had a reputation for being cautious, but very thorough. And he was notably quite good at naval strategy. And I mean, it goes without saying, as you've mentioned, having broken the German codes, they were able to form quite long-term strategies and exploit a lot of what the Germans were trying to do whenever they would try to break out of the blockade and mess around. So honestly, the poker, he had the hand of cards. He was going to be the one who was going to be dictating when and where battles would actually take place, and Jutland's going to be one of them. And he's definitely a key figure in World War One when it comes to naval history.
I would also say one thing I really love about Jellicoe is he was a commander who cared for his men.
Mhm.
So Scapa Flow is right up in the north.
Mhm.
It's a great anchorage, right? Like these islands right up at the northern tip of Scotland. It's a great anchorage, but really bad for men because there's nothing.
The Scotch.
And Je
Just throwing it out there. I like
I
Scotch, and
don't
I've
think,
had a few from there. Yeah,
but I don't think they had any distilleries back then. But
maybe not.
so the bulk of the British fleet was, centered here. It was the Grand Fleet, right? I keep sometimes mixing up the High Seas Fleet and Grand Fleet, but bulk of the strength of the British Grand Fleet was stationed here. And while it's a great anchorage, he had to ensure that yes, the proper amount of supplies was taken or was sent everywhere, and he made sure it came. The sailors never stopped there. And it was they needed about 2,000 tons of food every month, fuel, ammo. He got material so that they could build facilities for the men. So they had cricket grounds, football grounds, even a 80-hole golf course, theaters, so that and drill grounds, so that the men could actually, beyond the routine of maintaining the ships, have something to do. And one of the things that I really do like is he made the Admiralty send schoolmasters from the naval school to teach a lot of the sailors and junior officers, which many did take him up on this offer. So it's a really nice touch. And there was also this nice story was he had to he found out one of his staff officers had to were recently became a father, and that man was from London. So Jellicoe sent him down to London to deliver some papers in person to the Admiralty. And he timed it in a way so that between the man's arrival in London and when he had to report to the Admiralty, he had about 8 hours. So Jellicoe hoped that he would have used that time to, spend time with his newborn child and wife. So because of this, this guy has the, you know, undying loyalty of a lot of his men. And one thing is, he does get along with one of the key admirals, but not BT. Because Jellicoe is still, you could say, procedural and old school. He still follows the orders and expects it to be followed in the same tradition. I'll get to that when we describe some of the action, because that's going to play a big role in the entire battlecruiser action. So, and one more thing for Jellicoe, he was a pioneer for the aircraft carrier, you could say. If you say Jackie Fisher's, pet project was the Dreadnought. He was the guy leading for HMS Campania, which was like a converted liner to be the first aircraft carrier which could launch recon planes and light seaplanes. It would have been pretty pivotal, but unfortunately, Campania would not be dispatched for this upcoming engagement. And ultimately, he would be going kind of blind beyond the Admiralty reports and surface ship sightings for this upcoming engagement.
Ironically, the Japanese were kind of the foremost at this with the Wakimia. During the Russo-Japanese War, they had used it against the Germans at the Battle of Tsingtao. But I think it was a Balkan engagement where the first actions happened with quote unquote a seaplane carrier. So I can't remember who was using it. I don't know if maybe it's the Italians or something, but after that, the Japanese were kind of the pioneers of it.
True enough. But so one of the key things that we do need to discuss was there was one British unit which is going to play a big role for today, and that is the 5th Battle Division. This was a battle division consisting of 4 battleships of the Queen Elizabeth class.